If you're looking for a story that involves a wholesome tale of a main character winning everyone's hearts, Cyril has prepared a show for you. Blessed with the ability to understand the tongue of the dragons, Cyril resigns from a ruthless Dragon Knight guild and decides to train his own dragons. Let's explore his epic tale by diving deep into the story. Winged creatures of incredible capabilities have become necessary in daily life. Over the course of the last century, dragons have been utilized in many ways. They are mainly classified into dwarf dragons, mesoscale dragons, and finally colossal dragons, all based on their size. Dwarf dragons are usually twice as large as humans and are used for means of transportation. Because of their effective use in battle, many dragon knights have become soldiers. The mesoscale dragons boast a size comparable to a house and play a part in logistics operations. Lastly, the colossal dragons are considered weapons of war. As the military's core, most of them are significant enough to be known by their names. The ones who are capable of leading these winged creatures are called the Dragon Knights. These knights became responsible for establishing the Dragon Knight Guild. Enter Cyril, a boy who witnesses a beautiful dragon hovering over the skies, notably used for long-distance transportation of goods. The mesoscale class, Nidhogg species, understands human orders, but they're often considered combative and valued by the military. A girl sees the dragon and aspires to become a dragon knight in the future. Cyril smiles when he sees her, reflecting that dragon knights are often the #1 sought-after dream job, because the concept of being able to ride dragons is more fashionable than the other occupations. You bet. It's how to train your dragon all over again. Cyril sees a dwarf-class dragon and realizes that it is being used for rental transport. Some businesses provide transportation services and charge their passengers, and the Terresk species is often considered the most stable for the job. The man can't find a way to operate his dragon, who refuses to move the cart. Cyril makes his presence known and requests to have a word with the dragon. The coachman apologizes and thinks of him as a customer, but Cyril reminds him that he is no customer and declares that the child dragon has injured their leg. Surprised, the man turns to the back and inspects the dragon, only to discover the source of the pain. Lamenting his fate, he suspends business temporarily while Cyril is left flabbergasted. The man thanks Cyril for his help, who really doesn't fancy the conversation, and advises the man to take care of the baby dragon. Cyril is about to leave when he is thanked by the dragon, who is the only one in the world who can understand them. Cyril remembers his conversation with a guild master, who mocked him for catering to the well-being of the dragons. The man only continued to step on his nerves, thinking of the poor creatures as nothing more than objects to be used. Cyril is unique in the sense that he has been able to interpret the dragon's language from a young age. The same doesn't occur to him with the voices of other animals, but his ability to communicate with the dragons is the reason he became a dragon knight. In this world, dragons are taught to understand basic signals before they can be ultimately commanded. Cyril, on the other hand, was able to communicate with them and request that they move whenever they wanted. He became proficient at controlling dragons to his will, far more than anyone else. Cyril was soon hired by the dominating Dragon Knight Guild, Lindworm. The guild ranks were determined by the number of dragons one possessed, along with their achievements, with the S rank considered the highest. One has to complete the highest joint rescue requests 3 times in a row in order to achieve the S rank. Lindworm, being a powerful guild, had its own style of controlling dragons, something that displeased Cyril. In his first month of being scouted, the Dragon Knight was deemed a useless man and actually expelled from the guild itself. However, he wanted to be expelled in the first place, pleased that he would never come across the guild again. Ro escaped the toxicity of his life, nice. Presently, Cyril thinks that he should take on other jobs. Because he has been expelled from the best guild, he is now reduced to an independent Dragon Knight. Inside the town hall, there are requests for such knights to fulfill. Cyril notes that civilians also take up the requests, but they fail miserably. Cyril's case poses a problem, since he doesn't own a dragon, but he thinks that he should take advantage of the requests. Deciding on a request, Cyril reads that someone is in need of training a hatched dragon. Interested, Cyril goes over to meet Patrick Forge, who explains the details of the request to him. Cyril inquires about the details of the mission, while Patrick tells him that the dragon is supposed to be a gift for his son. Cyril reflects that a dragon and child raised together end up becoming inseparable companions, with the dragon serving as their protector. Patrick managed to buy a dragon and hired many trainers, only to find himself at a loss because of the dragon's stubborn behavior. Patrick decided to look for a dragon knight, which is how his request came to be. Cyril decides to check up on the dragon, discovering that it is the Tarrasque species. Patrick doesn't have high hopes, knowing that even the trainer's commands have failed to tame the dragon. Cyril decides to give it a shot, and introduces himself to the dragon. In a state of hurry, the dragon tries to express wanting to reunite with its sister. Sensing that the dragon is worried, Cyril asks for the details, surprising the dragon with his ability to understand their language. Cyril confirms the fact, which only shocks the dragon even more. The dragon was the only one purchased by Patrick, separating the winged beast from its sister. The dragon desires to reunite with its kin, and claims to want to do anything in return. Cyril inquires if the dragon would happily look after the merchant's son in exchange for the request. In a state of joy, the dragon agrees, so long as it is reunited with its sister. Cyril expresses the matter to Patrick, and asks him to check if the dragon's elder sister is still available. Patrick is caught off guard, while Cyril explains that the creature is willing to comply in exchange for its condition. Patrick is confused by his words, while Cyril tells him to do exactly as he says. Later, the Tarrasque dragon is reunited with its kin, and shares a happy reunion. Cyril finds himself happy, and claims that the two are a pair of sisters, no different than humans. He recalls his uneasy conversation with one of the guild members, and shakes off the thought. Cyril knows that the Tarrasque sisters have to be together, and is about to be paid, when the two dragons thank him for his help. Cyril requests them to take care of Patrick's child, a request that is heard by both of the dragons, as they only want to be together. Cyril pats the cute dragons and later talks to Patrick, who thanks him for his efforts, calling Cyril an amazing person. Cyril advises him not to separate the two dragons even when they have fully matured, as they might start refusing commands. Glancing at the dragons sleeping in harmony, Cyril takes off with a happy smile, thinking that his expulsion from the largest guild didn't play a single part in regret, since he understands the emotions of the dragons, and desires to prioritize the well-being of the dragons from this point onwards. Hands down goated main character, what a guy. He acknowledges the income and necessity of work, but also knows that one has to do better things for a better future. Cyril overhears a bunch of people hovering over the requests before walking away. Cyril takes the request and thinks of giving it a shot. We also get a brief glimpse of a mysterious girl who is fed up with life and unable to find a reliable dragon knight who can deliver her letters. Arriving in front of the mansion, Cyril understands the client's identity. The request requires him to deliver a letter, which is unfavorable for an independent dragon knight without a personal dragon. Meeting with the client, the girl introduces herself as Catherine Molinier. She judges Cyril right off the bat about his age, and doubts his ability to control the dragons. Cyril affirms that he is capable, and states that he can adequately control them. Catherine isn't impressed, but also not worried, because she has contacted other dragon knights as well. Cyril questions the importance of the letter, and Catherine tells him that it won't even be delivered securely with just one, which is why she had to write many. Cyril recalls the Molinier family to be a line of aristocratic nobles, who are the lords of the territory. Furious, Cyril asks a question. He wonders about the contents of the letter, which strikes him as imposing and offensive to Catherine at first. Cyril affirms that he could create the best strategy if he is informed of the full scope of the letter and will deliver at once if necessary. Catherine catches on to his words and reveals that it is actually a love letter and a reply to Baron Burke's letter. Catherine acknowledges that it is troublesome to socialize among the nobles, and questions how quickly he can deliver the letter to Ribot. Cyril internalizes that they're currently in Boisrousel, and states that the letter could be delivered in one day. Surprised by the fast travel time, Catherine is intrigued because she was told the letter would be delivered in 3 days. She leaves the duty to Cyril, and reminds him to bring back the proof of the receipt for his payment. After that, Cyril sets foot outside and thinks that he needs to rent a dragon from the rental shop. Knowing that the request is more significant than previously imagined, Cyril thinks that it allows him to connect with not only the Molinier family, but also the Baron's family. Recognizing the great importance of the ordeal, Cyril vows to give it his all. Entering the rental shop, Cyril is greeted by the receptionist and asks for a wyvern species, because he is looking for a fast travel time with no luggage. The receptionist has 3 available for him and takes him to their stables. Cyril decides to inspect each dragon personally and reflects that every dragon knight has their own way of communicating with the winged creatures, with some of them choosing to keep that process a secret. When Cyril checks the 3 wyverns, the dragons begin to roar in happiness, recognizing that a stickler human is here at last. Cyril replies to the harsh remark, surprising the wyvern with his ability to understand their language. Cyril affirms that he can speak their tongue, gaining their attention, as they wonder what caused him to gain such a supernatural ability. Cyril tells them that he wants to work with the dragons on a delivery request at the fastest possible speed. The dragons peer into the contents of the letter, questioning if it is some kind of confession letter. When Cyril nervously confirms this, the dragon inquires for even more details and is pumped to do the job. In fact, he is happy to deliver the letter as a female human wrote it. This dragon is sus as hell. Cyril thinks that the dragon will prove to be of use to him and issues his request for the dragon. The receptionist tries to explain that the other one is faster, but Cyril doesn't bother listening to him and abides by his choice. The dragon is immediately pumped to take the letter while causing concern to Cyril. They instantly take off to the skies, while Cyril internalizes his thought process for choosing the wyvern class for the mission. Not only that, the dragon flew so fast that they arrived at the destination in half a day's worth of time. Pokemon-looking Bozo really became the Flash for this quest. Receiving a reply from Catherine, the Baron sparkles in joy and orders Cyril to leave at once. The Dragon Knight finds him even more difficult to deal with than Catherine. Cyril then returned to the mansion in a much faster time than he had told her. Catherine finds him absolutely amazing and thinks that he is impressive. She inquires for his name, promising to keep it in memory if she needs any requests from him in the future. Thinking to himself, Cyril proudly declares that he has just tasted true success facing this request. Let's go. My boy secured the bag. Arriving in the dragon market, Cyril decides to scout for a dragon, knowing that renting a dragon is costly and that a loyal dragon would be capable of accomplishing any difficult task. He looks around to wonder where he could find suitable dragons for himself. Intrigued by one of the cheaper options of a Balor species, Cyril wonders the reason behind its low price. With the cheap dragon catching his eye, Cyril questions the seller about the low price of the dragon. He thinks the dragon is so affordable that even someone like him could afford it with his salary. Cyril questions if the dragon is inherently defective in some way. The man replied that the dragon itself is healthy, with its condition being well above average in terms of the Balor species. Cyril is confused and wonders why it is so cheap then. Sulking, the man tells him that the dragon is incapable of doing work and troubles the person when it doesn't follow their orders, to the point that even he recommends Cyril not to buy. Deciding to check it out anyway, Cyril is brought to the sleeping beast. Cyril internalizes that the Balor species is normally preferred for transportation and is incapable of walking fast, but they do boast excellent endurance. They're also herbivores, making the owner worry less about their feeding habits. Cyril greets the dragon and apologizes for bothering it. Receiving no response, he asks the dragon why it is unmotivated to work with. Cyril is left on a cold shoulder and thinks that the dragon is ignoring him. Finally, the dragon tells him that it doesn't fancy talking to humans. Cyril pleads with the beast to help him out in the conversation. Intrigued that the human is capable of understanding its speech, the dragon finds itself in confusion. Cyril offers to help the beast if it chooses to delve into its problems. The dragon tells him all she cares about is sleeping, as sleeping 12 hours a day is necessary, or else it simply wouldn't have enough energy to move around. Cyril finds her lethargic state to be quite unusual, knowing that most of the dragons only require 2 hours of sleep at the maximum, and are capable of working even during those cycles. These dragons are kinda OP, for barely requiring any sleep. Realizing that each dragon is unique in its own way, Cyril questions if the dragon would like to work for him if he allows the beast to sleep for half the day. The dragon thinks that Cyril is messing around because it seems too good of an offer. Cyril emphasizes that he is being serious and could have gone for other dragons if he wanted to. The dragon questions if he is truly okay with the idea of letting her sleep for 12 whole hours. Cyril confirms the fact and states that the dragon should work hard after receiving enough rest. Interested in his offer, the Balor dragon takes him up on the deal. Nan has just agreed to let this snoozer-loser clock out for half a day forever, goddamn. Cyril happily pays the money to the receptionist, who tries to help the Dragon Knight reconsider his life's choices, as the money won't be refunded. Cyril doesn't break a sweat and seems to be confident in his new dragon, believing the rest to be dependent on his abilities. Acquiring his new dragon, Cyril settles on a name for smoother operations. The dragon is surprised by his gesture, because humans usually treat them like numbers. Cyril tells the dragon that he understands their language, and doesn't seek to treat the dragon in an uncourteous manner. First, he suggests the name Louise, which doesn't really sit well with the dragon, who is uncomfortable with the idea of a name. They arrive at Cyril's place, while the dragon inquires about the place where it is meant to sleep. Cyril advises the dragon to sleep in his house or the garden wherever it pleases. The dragon doesn't mind, and fancies the idea of sleeping in general. Cyril wonders if the dragon wants to sleep now, since they don't have any work to do. The dragon turns to him and once again questions if he is confident with his ways. Cyril assures the beast that he doesn't mind, while the dragon thinks of him as a weird person. The dragon also addresses him by the name of Master, and tells him that she wants to reveal a secret. With no hesitation, the dragon roars and sends off her spears of light, shocking Cyril with her powers. The dragon herself doesn't know how she has such powers, and only discovers the ability by accident. Cyril claims that even after seeing 100 Balors, he has never witnessed a dragon with such power. Cyril realizes that power doesn't inherently exist in the Balor species, while the dragon tells him that she gets incredibly tired after deploying the ability. Cyril thinks that although they can't identify the source of the power, it is powerful enough to exhaust a ton of energy. Finding herself in exhaustion, the dragon assures him that she can use the ability for Cyril's sake whenever he pleases. Cyril affirms that she shouldn't have to push herself to such levels, and thanks the winged beast for her consideration. Nah, but Loki, why does bro have a hyper beam all of a sudden? The plot thickens. The following morning, Cyril tells her that he is going to find work for the two of them. The dragon responds that she is busy sleeping, which Cyril doesn't mind, and allows her to sleep until the afternoon, when they will have some work to do. While he is at the town hall, Cyril realizes that his dragon doubted him before, but that he won't anymore. Knowing that he has Louise by his side, Cyril thinks that it would be best if he focused on transportation jobs. He gets called by Rose, who is a receptionist, and reports that she has a request to share. When Rose and Cyril discuss the matter in private, Rose reports that Catherine is impressed by the Dragon Knight Cyril, as only a handful of freelancers are capable of impressing her. Cyril is grateful to hear that his efforts paid off, while Rose tells him that she needs him to search for someone. Confused, Cyril questions if the job really requires a Dragon Knight at all. Rose confirms that the mission isn't just a typical search task, but instead a matter of utmost priority and secrecy. Finally, Rose reveals that the princess herself has gone missing. Yup, the ultimate damsel is in ultimate distress. Cyril is shocked to hear the news, while Rose tells him that she would be incapable of filling him in on the details. Cyril reflects that the princess of the country, perhaps the most important figure, has gone missing, and inquires more about the job. Rose questions if he is aware of Mount Himyar. Cyril questions if that is the location of his search mission. Rose confirms that the princess's cavalcade has gone missing while traversing through the mountain. Cyril questions if it happened recently, to which Rose tells him that it actually happened last night. She states that there are situations that they are unaware of, and the client doesn't want to make a fuss out of the matter. The client insists on finding out about the situation, and Rose asks for his thoughts. Cyril pauses for a brief moment before accepting the job. On their way to the mission, the dragon questions why Cyril seems disappointed. Cyril states that the princess not only could have gone missing, but may be dead. He is glad to have been entrusted with the mission, and thinks that his portfolio will only reach greater recognition if he succeeds. Heading towards the mountain, Cyril and Louise take a break to discuss the matter of the letter that he borrowed from the princess. He wants Louise to track the scent of the letter, while the Balor dragon mentions that she doesn't excel in scouting, but gives it a shot for his sake. Louise immediately recognizes the scent, and tells Cyril that the scent is the fragrance of spices. Cyril declares that they should follow the scent. Trekking through the mountain, Cyril thinks that the task could have been much more difficult if he chose to climb the mountain on his own, even though the dragon is making the job look so easy. He praises Louise for her strength, while Louise is surprised that they're doing work at all. Louise claims that she wants a reward if they manage to complete the mission. Cyril questions the kind of reward she is looking for. In response, Louise exclaims that she wants a litter made of well-dried hay for a perfect sleeping environment. Cyril thinks that the litter should be easy to arrange, and accepts her request. Joyous, the dragon becomes excited and speeds up in her search to make the mission a success. Her visible happiness ends up playing the opposite effect and reminds Cyril of the horrible conversation that he shared with a guild member. My guy has PTSD from that conversation apparently. Cyril is aware that his treatment of Louise is an alien concept to the harsh ways of the guild. Louise suddenly stops while Cyril wonders what's wrong. Louise declares that something is below them. Cyril is surprised to see the cliffs and realizes the effects of a landslide. He also lays his eyes on the destroyed carriage, wondering if the princess is alive inside. The dragon confirms, while Cyril questions if they can go down. Louise thinks that it's feasible and makes the descent. Reaching the bottom, Cyril draws near the carriage and recognizes the crest of royalty, indicating that it is indeed the correct carriage. Cyril looks to his left and realizes that none of them have survived. Reaching for the carriage, Cyril receives a sudden shock, while Louise reports a barrier has covered the carriage. Louise advises him to break the barrier, while Cyril thinks that it may be possible with her abilities. Charging her special beam, Louise fires a tremendous shot that shatters the barrier and makes way for them. When Cyril hops inside, he finds that the princess is asleep, but thankfully still alive. Cyril also doesn't find any injuries on her body, which is only possible thanks to the sturdy barrier protecting the carriage. Cyril tries to wake her up, and the princess regains consciousness at last. Catherine is tired at first, only to become startled by the unknown man. Cyril insists for her to calm down as he is only here on a search mission. The princess explains the situation that led up to this point, while Cyril thinks that she is unusually calm in a life-threatening situation. Cyril insists that they see a doctor at once, while the princess wonders what will become of her fallen soldiers. Cyril explains that they can't risk taking them along, and states that another party will come for them later. The princess follows his advice and spots the Balor dragon. Cyril asks the dragon if she can carry both of them, to which Louise reminds him that she wants litter in return. Cyril confirms that he'll buy her as much as she wants and strikes a deal with the dragon, bribing 1,000. On their way back, Cyril wonders if the princess is feeling alright. The princess is lost in thought and suddenly becomes startled. She questions if Cyril is a dragon knight, a fact that he confirms. When the princess inquires about his guild, Cyril tells her that he doesn't work in a guild. The princess finds it confusing how someone with his abilities isn't a part of a guild. Cyril turns to her and wonders what she means by her words. The princess emphasizes that she senses fondness in the dragon's treatment of him. The princess shares that the dragon knights, whom their dragons love, are usually the best at their craft, and wonders why he would work as a freelancer instead. Cyril vaguely hints that a lot has happened to him along the way, an answer that proves to be sufficient at the moment. Bro doesn't want to yap about his life, not bad. Completing the search mission, Rose is struck with wonder that Cyril has been able to recover the princess in one piece. Turning to the knight, the princess thanks him for his efforts and wonders how she should repay him. Cyril assures her that he has already received payment for the mission and advises her not to worry about him. Even still, the princess decides to give him a gift, which is a handkerchief with her family's emblem. She tells him that if he brings the handkerchief to her, she will be willing to help him out at any given moment. Cyril is stunned by her gesture and thanks the princess, ending up on another successful mission. After receiving his hefty payment, after the completion of the mission, Cyril thinks of repaying some rewards with the money. Acquiring 1,000 reals, Cyril is satisfied, having obtained the amount, while Louise adorably reminds him to buy her litter. Interestingly enough, Cyril denies her, only to receive a bit of frustration from the dragon. Cyril implies that 1,000 reals are considered a 1-month salary, so he wants to buy something even better than litter for her sake. Sparkling with joy, the dragon can't even begin to comprehend what he has planned. Cyril tells her that they're going to look for proper bedding, and decides to take her shopping. The two arrive in the shopping area, full of supplies for the dragons. There are toys and other accessories, although Louise isn't interested in them. Deciding to check out the main store, Cyril is stopped by a dragon knight, who also belongs to his former Lindworm guild. Rui shares his surprise, having heard that Cyril quit the guild. Cyril confirms the fact, while Rui offers him a chance to return to the guild. Cyril is surprised that Rui is willing to do something of the sort for his sake, and reflects that he doesn't really want to rejoin the guild in the first place. Rui states that he is willing to cooperate, as long as Cyril resigns from his habit of putting dragons first as his principle, which is a barrier in the guild. Cyril lets out a laugh and rejects the offer, claiming that he isn't going to give up on his principle. Rui argues that he won't be able to do anything on his own without a guild, and only looks to help him. That is also when Rui takes note of his dragon. Louise the dragon questions what they're talking about and becomes annoyed because Cyril is delaying their chance to buy bedding. Cyril apologizes and claims that the man in front of them is trying to convince him not to let Louise sleep for 12 hours a day. Frustrated, Louise lashes out at the human for even daring to try. The Dragon Knight becomes intimidated by the dragon's threatening behavior and tells Cyril to stop the beast from approaching him. Cyril claims that he never even gave any orders. Annoyed, Rui turns face and questions the kind of magic trick Cyril is using. Cyril claims that he cherishes the dragons, and that is his only secret. Hearing his talk, Rui finds his reasoning silly and leaves. Cyril explains that they can't agree with each other and reminds Louise that he will allow her to sleep 12 hours worth of sleep each day. At the store, the receptionist greets them, while Cyril shares that they're interested in having to acquire bedding. The man directs them to the list of available beddings, which immediately strike as a heavenly place to Louise, who dives headfirst without control. Cyril apologizes for the trouble caused, while the receptionist tells him that they're just samples for display. Finding her fascination with the slime bed, Cyril reflects that slime beds are popular with humans as well, and they're quite elastic and provide a comfortable feel unlike any other. Knowing that she enjoys the bed the most, Louise states that it is even better than litter. Cyril asks for the price and is told that it costs 1,200 reals. Cyril realizes that the price is rather luxurious and confirms if the dragon truly wants it. After Louise confirms her desire, she questions if the item is too expensive for Cyril. Cyril assures her that there is nothing to worry about, as he wants to prioritize her well-being. Excited, the dragon jumps for joy and becomes grateful to her master. Cyril makes the purchase and gets told that despite there being many dragon knights who are able to talk to their dragons, Cyril seems to be really proficient in talking to them with ease. In response, Cyril wholesomely states that he treats the pet like his family. Big W. Like the video if you're enjoying this wholesome story so far. Making the purchase, the two of them head home. The slime bed is quite heavy, even with the dragon's strength. Louise draws into a pause and stops to ask if Cyril is truly alright with his decision. Cyril questions what she implies by her words. Louise acknowledges that 1,200 reals are a lot more than the salary they received for their mission. She confesses to being selfish in her demands. Cyril laughs at her words and assures the dragon that he wants to reward her well for her efforts. Cyril thinks that it only seems fair in return for her efforts. The dragon finds herself brimming with happiness at his response. A few days pass by, with the duo doing even more jobs together. However, Louise goes quiet, which concerns Cyril. Louise tells him that she is exhausted. Cyril notes that their recent job took them more time than usual. Even though Cyril has to turn in the results of the quest, he wants to live by his promise of avoiding a burden on Louise. He tells Louise to return home by herself and allows her to head home. Louise is once again surprised by the actions of her fantastic owner and leaves. Cyril is aware that she won't be facing any trouble on her way home, which is why he is comfortable enough to let her off. That is when Cyril thinks of a brilliant idea. Knowing that he can order his dragons to return home on their own, he realizes that he can also instruct his dragons to work on their own. With this idea in mind, Cyril considers buying yet another dragon. No, because that's actually a 5-head strategy. Meanwhile, caged inside a cart is a dragon that eagerly looks outside. Cyril returns to the dragon shop to buy another one, right after he purchases the Balor dragon. The shop owner inquires about the dragon's health. Cyril hesitates to respond and states that he isn't looking to make a complaint or a refund, and that the dragon itself is working diligently. In fact, Cyril informs him that he is looking to buy another dragon. However, Cyril sulks that he is short on a budget, having bought an expensive item recently. The dude spent his entire salary for it too. The shop owner is quick to inform him that they are short on dragons as cheap as the Balor that was sold. Cyril expected this response and thinks that he won't be getting lucky today. Cyril emphasizes that it would be best for the shopkeeper to contact him whenever there are cheaper dragons available. He also drops the handkerchief from his pocket, bearing the royal emblem. Taking note of the emblem, The shopkeeper becomes alarmed and finds himself in a daze. The shopkeeper tells him that the crest represents the princess, and Cyril confirms that he helped the princess at a job, which is why he came to earn the handkerchief. Realizing that he is important, the man offers Cyril the chance to make payments in installments. Cyril realizes that the man is smartly trying to cooperate with him in order to have a positive relationship with the princess by proxy, which is why he's offering Cyril an exclusive benefit. Cyril takes advantage of the situation and approves of the installment process. He is then taken to the den where the man inquires about the kind of dragon Cyril is looking for. Cyril tells him that he would prefer a mushcushous dragon, knowing that they are small dragons bearing 4 stomachs, with 3 stomachs incapable of digesting food, which can be used to store valuable goods. The body of such a dragon is capable of expanding several times their original size, much like a balloon in application. A dragon of such species takes note of Cyril, who introduces himself. The dragon finds it frustrating that a human is stupidly trying to engage in a conversation with a beast of another language. However, Cyril questions if he can't talk to the dragon. The dragon is unaware at this point that it is actually having a conversation with someone who understands his language. It receives a moment of realization and becomes shocked, unable to accept the powers of the human. Cyril tells the beast that he is looking to buy the dragon and wonders if it is fine with the dragon itself. The dragon argues that Cyril is going to force the beast to go with him in the end, because humans are just that awful. Cyril tells the beast that he is looking to have a conversation in her permission, seeking no desire to force her hand. Cyril emphasizes that he wants to have the dragon for himself because he wants to work with the creature and praises her for her beauty. The compliment throws her off and makes her flustered. Finally, she decides to play along and claims that she has one condition of her own. When Cyril inquires about the condition, the dragon states that she doesn't want a new name for herself, as she was born with a name, even before she was born. Colette introduces herself properly, while Cyril thinks well of her name. He assures her that he isn't looking to change the name, and wonders if Colette would be willing to cooperate with him. Hesitant at first, the dragon states that she doesn't hate the idea and wouldn't mind joining him. Colette emphasizes that she is only following him because he promised to refer to her by her actual name. Cyril welcomes her aboard and signs the deal on paper. Knowing that the morning is still fresh, Cyril tells her that they should check out her work environment before heading home. Taking her to the mountains, Cyril shows her an ore and instructs Colette to find similar minerals of the same kind. The ore is called carbanium and is found on the surface of Mill Reef Mountain. Knowing that many buy the ore for a high price, Cyril instructs the dragon to store them in her storage stomach and return to town. Colette doesn't mind the idea and accepts, thinking that she will wrap up her task with nothing to worry about. Cyril also tells her that he won't be contributing to the mission and hopes for her to accomplish the task on her own. Colette is shocked and confronts him about his words. Cyril also tells her to bring the collected ores back to town so that she can sell them to the traders, inquiring if the task is something within her abilities. Colette can't fathom how she is being given the liberty to do as she pleases, especially when Cyril confirms that he won't be looking after her during work. Colette wonders what he will do if she slacks off, but Cyril wears a warm smile and tells the dragon that he has faith in the creature. Colette thinks that he is some naive idiot, while Cyril states that Colette will do just fine without his intervention. Coming to terms with the job, Colette accepts the mission. Colette's mission was a success, even though the shopkeeper was surprised by a dragon selling the ore. Colette continued to work and repeated her tasks without doing any work, accomplishing so much that Cyril's plan was brought to fruition. Cyril brings Colette back to his home and insists for her to sleep in the yard. Colette doesn't have any issues because she already finds the environment much better than the market. She also discovers Cyril's other dragon, Louise, who is comfortably sleeping on her slime bed. Waking up from her sleep, Louise questions the identity of the other dragon. Cyril introduces Colette to Louise, and the two are quick to form friendships with each other. Knowing that two dragons are sharing a space in the yard, Louise and Cyril both agree that the place isn't very suitable for them. They don't mind sharing the space, especially Louise, who loves sleeping. Cyril is aware that the yard isn't spacious enough for another dragon, which is why he intends to look for a bigger place for his precious creatures. Having acquired the 2 dragons, they head into the town hall, where Louise is still sleepy as always. Colette is surprised that Cyril is aware of her sleeping habits and decides to take the dragon under his care. Cyril explains that if he had never possessed the ability to communicate with the dragons, then he would have no idea that she had slept so much. The same goes for Colette and her name, making it a fateful encounter. Suddenly, the 2 dragons come to a stop as they begin to stare at something. Cyril questions what bothers Colette, and she shrugs off the matter. Cyril knows that something caught her eye, while the dragon tries to deny it as much as she can. Cyril bid her farewell as she is supposed to do her work. Cyril hopes for her to have a good day, and wonders what caught her eye. He takes a look at the cupcakes and thinks that she may be drawn to them. Colette is like one of those textbook tsundere girls, except she is a dragon. After scoring another mission with Louise, Cyril tells her to stay and goes back to the shopkeeper, who welcomes him with respect. Cyril questions if his dragon came by, to which the shopkeeper explains that the dragon left a sack. Cyril is glad, because Colette has now secured her first earnings and followed his commands. Cyril covers the first installment for the dragon, and explains that he will be using Colette to pay beyond this point. Impressed by his abilities, the shopkeeper remarks that he sold the dragon only yesterday, and yet the beast has learned so much under his care. He thinks that Cyril is especially talented for being able to train the dragon to act by herself. He also states that Cyril is a man of great character who earns his respect. The reason he offers Cyril such praise is because he prioritized paying the first installment without putting it off until the end. Cyril shares his gratitude for having received the favor of installments and explains that he intends to establish a relationship with the store. This is because the shop houses dragons much better than the others. In this way, Cyril returns the compliment. In light of his 2 purchases, the shopkeeper wonders if Cyril has been having trouble with keeping the dragons because of space. Cyril is surprised that the man caught note of his recent worries. The shopkeeper explains spaces in the city either house 1 or 2 dragons or are large enough to keep a dozen. The shopkeeper knows a good house and offers Cyril the chance to visit the place. However, he explains that there is a problem. Even though the house is newly built, the dragons don't find themselves drawn to it. Cyril pays a visit to the house, realizing that the building is a place to keep the dragons especially. However, even with the dragon knights trying to enter the building, their dragons would refuse to go inside. Cyril's dragons wonder if they're going to live in the tall structure. Cyril thinks that they can lease it for cheap, knowing that the house isn't considered the most valuable. He also thinks that they will be able to uncover the mystery thanks to his ability to communicate with the dragons. Cyril introduces them to the dragon shed and states that they should enter inside. Colette and Louise are excited, only to discover that it's nothing more than an ordinary dragon shed in the end. Both Louise and Colette are tense and don't find a liking to the place, especially because of the terrible smell. Even though Cyril doesn't smell anything, he inquires about the source of the smell. Both dragons believe that it is the floor, which makes Cyril wonder if it has something to do with the dirt. The 2 dragons are so fed up that they immediately exit the dragon shed. Cyril asks about the details of the smell. Louise explains that upon a dragon's death, a feeling of dread was left behind. Wondering what they should do, Cyril thinks they should replace the dirt. He tasks Colette with the job, who is happy enough to embark on the mission. He also tells Louise to rest and decides to take care of the dirt himself. Cyril and Colette manage to spend an entire day replacing the dirt. After making adjustments to the space, he asks for their insight. Both dragons share contentment in their new shed and are relieved. Cyril declares that it is time for them to move into the lavish place, while Louise thinks that she is going to share the most comfortable sleep of her life. Cyril praises Colette for doing a wonderful job helping him out and shares that he has got a special present for her. Cyril unveils the present, which is a mountain full of sweets for her to enjoy. Louise is confused, while Cyril explains that he saw him staring at them, which is why he thought Colette was interested in trying them out. Louise is surprised to learn that Colette likes sweets and calls her weird. Thanks to her master's kindness, the dragon relishes the treat. Later, Cyril pays a visit to Rose, who claims that his effort means a lot to them. She also takes note of the fact that he has acquired 2 dragons at once. Rose mentions that despite becoming a freelancer only recently, he has found himself 2 dragons to train and is exceptional in his quests. Rose wonders if Cyril is interested in staying a freelancer for a long time. Cyril answers that he doesn't intend to join any guild and wants to be a freelancer forever. He also reflects that the Lindworm Guild was basically the worst group imaginable. Cyril also remarks that the rest of the guilds and even the other dragon knights are all the same, viewing dragons as objects to be used. Acknowledging his disinterest in joining a guild, Rose claims that she wanted to turn his attention to a different matter. In fact, Rose suggests the idea of starting up a guild of his own. Rose explains how guilds are officially recognized by governing bodies, and they are considered the associations of dragon knights. However, because of the importance of both the dragon knights and their dragons, the governing bodies have decided to extend them special privileges. Cyril inquires about such privileges and is told about the benefits circulating his taxes. Cyril thinks that she means income taxes, and Rose explains that overall, he will be taxed less on dragons, and if Cyril is looking to get even more dragons, then he will surely benefit from it. Cyril is surprised that he's getting tax reliefs on purchasing dragons, but Rose comes to the kicker. She tells him that the abilities of the dragons will also increase depending on the capabilities of the guild. Cyril is shocked and doesn't know the mechanics surrounding such a power-up. Rose tells him that she is also uninformed about the exact details. She musters an explanation that it has to do with the contract they share with the supreme god, Romancier, and the Dragon King. Rose doesn't know how it works exactly, while Cyril questions how he can create his own guild. Rose explains that he would require a backer, and she offers to become one herself for his case. Cyril thinks that it would be pleasant for her to take on the role. Following the mention of the backer, Rose explains that there is a deposit, which is a hefty amount of 10,000 reals. Cyril is intimidated by the amount and decides to show Rose Colette's findings. Apparently, Colette has collected a rare ore. It is revealed that Colette found the weird-looking ore, which is a stone that changes color on its own. Cyril wanted to have it appraised and was told that its value is approximately 10,000 reals. Rose is surprised and deems him a lucky man. Cyril applies for the guild after submitting the deposit. He proceeds to fill out the application form with the necessary details revolving around himself and his dragons. Lastly, a guild name is required for registration and is considered the most important aspect. Having finished the application, Cyril submits the document. Rose reads the name of the guild, which Cyril has chosen to be Dragons First as a short phrase to show off his wonderful message. With the application signed, the letter begins to shine, and a guild fairy pops right out of it. Rose explains that the guild fairies are basically used for identification processes. Cyril stares blankly at the fairy and wonders what he should be doing. Rose explains that the fairy is going to follow him and does just that by hiding in his bag. As a guild master now, Cyril is given various accessories, including collars and ankle bands, for his dragons. Rose tells him that these tools especially measure dragon energy, which affects the guild's levels. Cyril is not a stranger to such collars, knowing that the dragons of the Lindworm Guild also wore similar items. Strangely, he sulks and states that he is hesitant to put the collars on his precious dragons, and doesn't feel comfortable. Rose thinks that he should head to the dragon tool shop to help his case. After that, Cyril tells his dragons about the accessories and informs them of earrings and various other items. Cyril wants the dragons to choose what they intend to wear for themselves. Colette wonders what she should wear, while Louise, being sleepy as always, thinks that a sleeping bag would do. Cyril tells her that there is no such thing, and it isn't considered an accessory. Louise suggests an eye mask instead, which is something Cyril thinks he can order to be custom made. Hearing her suggestion, Cyril reminds the dragon that the accessory is to be worn at all times. Louise doesn't seem to mind, but Cyril respects her choice. When he turns to ask Colette about her accessory, the dragon finds herself embarrassed to state that she wants a ribbon. Cyril is on board with getting her the accessory and decides to head to the dragon tool shop the following morning. There, Cyril is told that the price will be 100 reals. Cyril orders 2 eye patches for Louise, deciding to keep a spare. He asks how Louise feels about it, and she doesn't seem to be having any complaints. Cyril has also given his dragons temporary collars to wear, and even though the dragons don't seem to be uncomfortable with them, he still feels uneasy on his end. Louise shares that she didn't expect Cyril to really honor her request for the eye mask. Cyril tells her that, if she wants the eye mask, he is only going to respect her wishes. Treated with such a kind response, Louise finds herself grateful for her master. Suddenly, Cyril spots a sudden glow from his bag. When he takes out the guild card, he is shocked to discover that the level has been upgraded to 2. When he reports the matter to Rose, even she is shocked because the level isn't supposed to change at this rate. Rose claims that Cyril is a one-person guild on top of that, which would at least take him a month to reach level 2. Cyril reflects that it would be easier to level up if he had more people in his guild. Rose decides to inspect the guild card and confirms that the card doesn't show any signs of cheating. Cyril questions how one could even cheat in such a way, to which Rose explains that people often borrow a dragon and make it enter their guilds, using that as a method to level up the card before letting the dragon go. However, in Cyril's case, it is something to celebrate, as Dragon's First has officially reached level 2. Intrigued, Cyril questions if his recent level up influences anything. Rose reaches for a paper and tells him that he should offer the item to the guild fairy. The guild fairy proceeds to scribble on the paper, creating a magical drawing of the entire city of Boisrausel. Noticing a bright spot, Cyril questions what it is for. Rose explains that the map precisely shows the location of his registered dragons, meaning that it is pointing to Louise. Rose is surprised that Colette isn't showing up on the map, while Cyril explains that Colette operates in the mountains, which would be out of range. Rose is impressed that Cyril allows her to be autonomous. She demonstrates how one can manipulate the map and zoom in, allowing them to spot Colette as well. Rose tells him that he will be able to get his hands on advanced abilities every time his guild levels up. Cyril is still left wondering why his guild level was influenced so rapidly. Rose mentions that even she isn't fully aware of the fact. We know the answer, it's because the dude is good at everything he does. Meanwhile, Colette returns after another successful day. Cyril has something to present to her and reveals an elegant and cute-looking ribbon as her accessory. Colette's eyes light up with exhilaration as she grows fond of the present. Cyril helps her put on the ribbon, allowing the dragon to look her best. Colette grows in awe of her master and shares her gratitude for the present. Once again, the guild card begins glowing. Cyril takes it out, but strangely discovers that the level hasn't increased. He sees Colette enjoy and realizes that it is possible for the guild experience points to increase based on the dragon's affection for their owner. The following day, Cyril is surprised that Colette is busy at work despite the early morning. Louise claims that Colette wants to impress Cyril as she couldn't stop giggling in admiration after receiving her gift. Cyril recalls that Colette earns a good amount, which is why he gives her a compliment, which leads to the energy measuring ribbon and the guild card glowing. Cyril thinks that he might be right in his suspicions about the requirements of the guild card. He also spots that Louise's mask fits really well on her, and she, too, is happy about it. Cyril decides to look for a job for them, and notes a letter of commendation from the Lindworm Guild over their achievements. Cyril realizes that the kingdom is commemorating their achievements for their outstanding performance. Even though Cyril himself disagrees with their philosophy, he knows that they're great at what they do, allowing their clients a sense of trust. Cyril wants to work his way to achieve a commendation letter of his own, but a familiar voice insists that it won't happen. Cyril turns to face Rui, who is informed of Cyril's new guild. Rui assures Cyril that he will never be able to score such an achievement. He also claims that many were interested in joining Lindworm because of the award, including a few B-ranked dragon knights with decades of experience. Cyril thinks of the achievement as impressive, while Rui tries to make him envious, reminding him that it would have been for his own good to stay with them for a while longer. Rui turns to leave, while Cyril thinks that even with the benefits, he doesn't want to return to the guild. Cyril returns to find the market all noisy and asks a civilian about the matter. The man tells him that a dragon has escaped and has caused a mess. The people are unaware of the dragon's location. Cyril is curious because he has never heard of a dragon forcefully escaping ever before. He wants to hear about the contents of how the dragon escaped, yet he also doesn't want to force Louise as she feels sleepy. Cyril thinks that he should merely deport the matter to the town hall. Suddenly, Cyril is slammed by the tail of a dragon and finds himself puzzled. The dragon begs for Cyril's help and frantically tells him that it doesn't like its home. Cyril takes both Emma and Louise back to his place and claims that he remembers the name of every dragon he has spoken to. Oof, that's some commitment and love for the creatures. The Zime-type dragon is a creature that belonged to the Lindworm Guild. These dragons are especially small and are used in the guild for their combat abilities. Cyril inquires about the reason for Emma's escape. The poor dragon explains that she was depressed and wanted to rest, but her owner just wouldn't listen. They forced the dragon to work, which led to Emma flunking the mission and nearly getting herself injured in the process. Not only that, the guild master himself declared that a faulty dragon isn't of their use and should be worked to death. Hearing his words, she escaped. Cyril remembers the guild master's brooding words and reflects that the creatures are capable of understanding the human language. Emma explained that she had heard about Cyril and had waited for him in the town hall. She begs Cyril to take her in. Cyril is aware that the transfer of a dragon is a complicated affair and wonders if the guild will be open to negotiations. Suddenly, someone crashes through the gate while Emma frets for her life, knowing that they have come to take her away. Cyril pats the frightened dragon and emphasizes that he will take care of the affair to prioritize her safety. Cyril goes on to converse with an annoyed Rui, who makes it clear that he is aware that Cyril is housing Emma under his care. Cyril confirms the fact, while Rui demands that the dragon be returned. Cyril declares that he is interested in the transfer of the beast. Rui can't believe his words, while Cyril argues that he won't hand over a beast who ran away from the guild. He also claims having heard that the guild master intends to work the creature to death. Vouching for Emma's support, Cyril claims that he won't return the dragon to the guild master and advises Rui to return to the guild, and maybe they can hope for a negotiation. Frustrated, Rui proceeds to push him aside and heads inside to capture Emma. While the poor dragon is startled, Rui shouts at her that they're to return at once. His continuous shouting and questions wake up Louise if the person is their enemy. While she is sleepy, Louise nearly charges her ability and shoots at Rui, who is shocked, questioning what just happened. Cyril tells him that the dragons are doing their duty to intercept unknown trespassers. Cyril advises him to return with the fruits of this conversation. Annoyed, Rui emphasizes that Cyril will come to regret his actions. After the ordeal, Cyril shares a table with the guild master of Lindworm, a man known as Dicky Raj. He is aware of Cyril's interest in the dragon, while the Dragon Knight complains that he doesn't fancy the idea of working a dragon to death. The guild master mocks him, but Cyril cares little about his insults. Dicky Raj tells him that they're uninterested in keeping useless dragons in the first place. However, he claims that Cyril can't just acquire them just because of that. Dicky Raj emphasizes that the dragon is the property of the guild, and they won't surrender the dragon like that. Cyril inquires about the price he has to offer for the trade. The guild master tells him that money is irrelevant to the situation, as matters are handled a certain way in these situations. Cyril stands up and begins to kneel in front of the man, going as far as to beg him for it. Dicky Raj finds him an odd person and tells him to do whatever he pleases. This boomer should worry about his receding hairline instead of bullying dragons. Cyril returns to his dragons, who are all wary of the man that he just encountered. Cyril declares that Emma is now free, allowing her to do whatever she pleases. Cyril wonders if she is interested in going elsewhere, but Emma insists and wants to stay along with Cyril. The Dragon Knight happily accepts her and welcomes Emma under his care. 3 is the charm, woohoo. Suddenly, the 3 dragons take note of the mysterious light that lures Cyril and rewards him with a ring. The 3 dragons are shocked to take note of the artifact. Cyril inquires about the artifact, while the dragons explain that they're a secret treasure of the dragons and have always been called that way. Emma claims that the Dragon King created the artifact with the power of the supreme god, Romancier. The ring only appears to those deeply cherished by their dragons. Cyril doesn't know much about the Dragon King and inquires for more details. Unfortunately, neither of them knows anything about the Dragon King apart from his reign, when dragons ruled over the earth. The Dragon King also had a voice that made every creature bow down to him, and the supreme god, Romancier, was one of the followers. Cyril thinks that it is more of a myth, while Emma, Louise, and Colette remark how they have never seen an artifact in person. Cyril questions why they consider it an artifact in the first place. Emma tells him that they know by instinct, even though Cyril thinks that it is just an ordinary ring. He thinks that, if the ring bothers all 3 of his dragons, it implies the value of the treasure itself. Cyril shares the ring with his dragons, adding to their confusion. Cyril innocently states that the treasures of the dragons should be returned to them, like putting them in one of Colette's stomachs. Colette greatly denies the idea, while Emma explains that the dragons are far too afraid to take such a thing. Realizing that the artifact is much too important, Cyril decides to wear it, and wonders if he will receive an effect. Strangely enough, no changes occur to him initially until he spots specific bars over his dragons. Colette is curious about his discovery, while Cyril questions if Colette is feeling alright. He claims that the artifact is hinting that she isn't feeling her best. Cyril shares that he can see 2 bars over them, one implying physical health and the other mental health. Cyril realizes that Colette has been working as of late and apologizes for putting her through so much work. Cyril advises her not to work herself to such a level. Cyril deduces that the artifact may have been gifted to him in order to ensure the dragons don't overwork each other. Colette finds his explanation reasonable and agrees to take a rest. Cyril has solved another one of his problems and is impressed by the ring. Late at night, Cyril receives a knock on his door. Cyril opens the door to find a man who apologizes for disturbing him at a late hour. The man introduces himself as Roland Flory and claims that he has a favor to ask. Surprised, Cyril questions why he was chosen for the task. Roland explains that Catherine referred him to Cyril. The Dragon Knight inquires about the details of the favor, to which Roland explains that a guild of Dragon Knights failed to complete a suppression mission. Cyril reflects that suppression is usually necessary for a group of monsters and is a dangerous task with high rewards. Roland is sad to report that the front line of troops was annihilated in an instant, an incident so rare it hasn't occurred in the past 5 years. Cyril is tasked to retrieve the wills of all the people that were annihilated. Cyril brings forth his obvious concerns about his safety in a hostile territory. Roland emphasizes that he won't face trouble because the main guild is sending more troops to subjugate the monsters, and they want Cyril to be the one to collect the wills. The location is revealed to be the Danzig Valley, and the mission reward is promised to be 5,000 reals. Cyril doesn't object and, in fact, accepts the mission. Roland tells him that he is also allowed to keep any kind of dragon gear from the battlefield, so long as he collects the wills. The following morning, Cyril packs his luggage and claims that it will take him 3 days to reach the destination, and the same for their return. Louise inquires about recovering dragon equipment. Cyril is surprised that Louise is secretly eavesdropping. Cyril explains that the battlefield is like a treasure trove, as only people with expensive equipment enter battle. The ones who search and strip the battlefield sites for equipment sell them for cash. Colette finds it an ugly practice. Cyril explains that the equipment of the Dragon Knights is much more valuable than that of ordinary soldiers, which makes it possible for them to obtain them as a reward. Imagine acquiring SSS-Class equipment for free. That's kind of messed up at the same time. After successfully making their way into the Danzig Valley, Cyril takes note of the 20 humans and 30 fallen dragons. He finds it a gruesome sight and asks Emma to detect any nearby enemies. Emma gives him the green signal, while Cyril explains that they will be splitting up for the mission to find one will on each body. While Louise and Emma are prepared, Colette claims that she doesn't like the job. Cyril allows the dragon to rest if necessary, but Colette still decides to take up the job, knowing that it is her duty. Indeed, tell us in the comments about your favorite dragon of Cyril's group. It doesn't take long for them to collect all of them. Cyril stores them in Cyril's storage stomach. He is in a hurry to return home. Before returning, Cyril realizes that he has another job to tend to. While the dragons are confused, Cyril explains that they should give the dragons and the Dragon Knights a proper burial. Cyril finds himself in unease and states that he doesn't want to let the fallen go disrespected. Louise questions if he also means for them to bury the fallen dragons. Cyril confirms that he wants both to receive a proper burial. Louise remarks that he is truly an odd person, and Emma and Colette confirm her claim. Cyril apologizes that they have to share a gathering with a weird person, but Louise corrects him, stating that although he may be odd, Cyril is truly a good person.